Yes, but there could be one rotten pesca among us who isn't eating the fruit. We'll ask the king to redouble surveillance.
That'd be wise. There are a lot of you.
About 2 months ago, I was checking out trailers for upcoming indie games on a whim. Much to my surprise, one of them really caught my eye. Astria Ascending stood out with a really interesting art style wrapped up in a somewhat familiar JRPG package. Now that it's out, is it the newest indie darling on the scene or just another knockoff? It's no surprise that Astria is a good-looking game. Its drawn art style gives off a ton of Vanillaware vibes, one of my favorite developers. I won't lie, it really was my main reason for jumping in on this title. The visuals are complemented by a somewhat stiff animation set that makes everything kind of have a paper theater vibe to it. I personally think it really works here, and it's nice without leaving things feeling awkward. I also really like the exaggerated character designs. They have a lot of personality. This includes the main cast and the various NPCs around the game. The various races in the game really come to life with pretty dramatic differences between their physical traits. Sadly, the combat effects are nothing too special more often than not. They rarely ever impressed me, but the art style itself really made up for it in my opinion. The music is fitting, but it rarely stands out, and it's likewise for the voice work too. It can be pretty hit or miss in general, but I think the main cast did a good job. However, there is definitely some obvious home studio recording done in a few cases, but given the current situation, that's nothing to bag on.
So members of various tribes would come in and out of this place?
I fail to see what's so attractive about Saren.
Echo, this isn't a lover's retreat. It's a place for respect and worship.
So Leonard and Zima are more like disciples of Saren.
The story here is also an area where Astria doesn't really impress. It doesn't do anything to break the mold, and it leans heavily towards the expected JRPG tropes that inspired it. That said, there are some interesting interactions and moments throughout the adventure that might keep you going. I will say, it's a pretty unbalanced affair with a few too many things that raised my eyebrows for too long. Things like characters saying pretty racist things in their world towards each other with no one really intervening, but they're also supposed to be fighters for harmony between the races in the world. It really felt awkward for way too long in my opinion. Sadly, the conclusion wasn't all that great either, which made it even more irksome throughout the game. Once it's wrapping up, you'll have a feel for the world and characters and situation, but it doesn't really feel like anything was overly compelling in the adventure. This is where I'll give some props to Astria. It's been inspired by a handful of JRPGs. Of course, its main source of inspiration is Valkyrie Profile, but there are some modern ones there as well, like Bravely Default or even Octopath Traveler tossed in too. When running around, you move in a 2D plane, just like Valkyrie Profile. It works well enough and has a good bit of simple platforming to keep things interesting. Dungeons as well have puzzles tossed in to keep things from getting too stale. None of these were ever brain scratchers, but they do require a minute or two to solve to proceed to reach that hidden chest or next area. Combat is an area where the game really actually shines though. Usually when games are inspired by something, they feel kind of like that thing without actually hitting the mark. And much to my surprise, Astria made a hybrid of several combat systems to do something familiar, but pretty unique that actually felt good to play. The whole crux of the system is based around hitting weaknesses to avoid resistance as much as possible. The more weaknesses you hit, the more damage you do of course, but also you gain the ability to boost the effectiveness, damage, or accuracy of most abilities with points gained from playing well. Enemies have boost points too, and they can be used in the same manner. It's simple, but it hits just right when you're doing well. Another thing I really liked about the gameplay was the job system. Each character can change their main job and equip sub-jobs to really add some personalization to each member. Being able to choose what each character specializes in is really great, not to mention the awesome new designs they get when doing so. Going along with this is characters learning new abilities and stat boosts in a Final Fantasy X inspired sphere grid layout. Choosing to go for stats or abilities first was a simple but really feel-good mechanic for me. I really debated putting this last part in the beginning of the review, but I have to dock a lot of positive points this game has thanks to the myriad of bugs that exist. Some of these are extremely minor and I didn't notice them for several hours, like the in-game clock showing minus millions of hours or sometimes incorrect audio clips. Those are fine. But others that actively hindered progress I just can't let slide. Side quest dialogue not progressing, or restarting battles in an endless loop, not being able to enter doors, and more. And none of these were even solved by a simple restart. When I would load the game, the bugs would still be there. It just isn't acceptable. And the bugs are so widespread across all platforms, it's really wild that this game wasn't delayed for bug fixing. After all is said and done, Astria Ascending is still a JRPG. The combat mechanics really nailed the feel of the genre more than I ever expected, and the visual design is well above my image of an average indie game, but that's just not enough. At the core of any JRPG is a compelling story, and it's sadly something that Astria falls short on. Still, it checks lots of boxes, but it never goes beyond that. The whole package is just a little bit above average. Couple that with all the bugs that the game currently has, and I just can't recommend it in its current state. It does seem like the devs are well aware that the game is having problems, and it does seem like they're taking note of the various bugs that are being reported, but there's no ETA on a patch, and with that knowledge, I just really can't recommend this game currently. Hey, thanks for watching this review. Hit the thumbs up, like, sub, follow the Twitter, and maybe even stop by my Twitch channel where you can see me play games like this live and more. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.